Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Luis Fernandez. I spoke with WRAL investigative reporter Destiny Patterson, whose in-depth reporting shows a shocking trend in online exploitation of children. Here's our conversation. Thanks for watching the WRAL YouTube page. I'm Luis Fernandez. If you like anything North Carolina, looking for all the latest news, please be sure to like and subscribe. Right now, we are joined by WRAL investigative reporter Destiny Patterson. Destiny, you have a story coming up here that really shocked me when I was looking into the reporting that you've done. I'm going to read you may recognize this. It's from your article. In North Carolina, reports of online exploitation of children increased by 1,115% since 2019. That's according to data from the State Bureau of Investigation. I mean, that's a number that just
it's staggering.
Baffling. Now, that term itself, online exploitation of children, a little vague. Can you hone in a little bit on what that means when we say something like that?
Yeah, I mean, basically what it boils down to is that there are predators or suspects that are seeking out children online, and once they're able to make contact with them, they're manipulating them, they're abusing them, they're extorting them. So it's really kind of an umbrella phrase or term for the ways that children can be exploited online.
Now, as you're explaining this, I think I'm starting to get a better picture here, but why are we seeing such a large increase in that number? I mean, anytime something is going up by 100%, that catches my eye. But when we're going to a fourth digit now, what is kind of the reason behind this increase, at least according to law enforcement?
Yeah, sure. So as you noted, I talked to multiple law enforcement agencies and did actual sit-down interviews with two of them, one of them in Holly Springs and then the other, the State Bureau of Investigation. So from their point of view, I think it boils down to more people are on their phones or are on the internet in some way, and that includes children. And actually what we're seeing is we're seeing younger and younger children that are on iPads, and those iPads have internet capabilities. So I think it's just the access to the internet at all. And then suspects are realizing that. In fact, when I talked to Kevin Routon, he's with the State Bureau of Investigation, he mentioned to me that it used to be kind of this stereotypical suspect, and that has changed. He said now it's this wide range of people, young, old, black, white. It crosses socioeconomic statuses as well, and he said that that was not always the case, and it really is just a sign of the times. And obviously we know that during the pandemic, more people were online.
Sure.
So what's interesting too is that you would think that during those pandemic years would be when most of this was concentrated. But the fact that we're still seeing this increase is where law enforcement is most concerned.
When I think back to, the early aughts, the 2010s, when you had child exploitation and things like this online, you're thinking very specific forms like online, right?
Chat rooms, yeah.
Things like that. But almost any form of online community has some kind of chat feature. Does that play into this at all?
There is a quote that Kevin Routon said that really stuck with me. Wherever children are, predators will be. And think about social media, right? We have Snapchat, we have TikTok, we have Instagram, we have Facebook. So those are all places where potential predators are looking for children. But in addition to that, as you mentioned, there are also gaming platforms that have these abilities to almost be like chat rooms, right? Like you can connect with people, you can talk to them. And one of the investigators said it's like catfishing. They don't know who they're talking to on the other end of the screen. They're saying a username and then they're telling them, oh yeah, I'm 8 years old, but whole time this person could be 50, they could be 25. We don't know.
Now, I want to kind of go into the actual enforcement of this and everything, but for anyone who is listening, I do think it's important to kind of go over the safety element of things first, right? If you are a parent who's watching this or listening to this, and your children spends a lot of time online, what does law enforcement recommend that you do to help keep your kids safe?
Yeah, I mean, out of the 3 investigators I talked to, it really boils down to being aware and being involved and being curious, even. I mean, I think that there's still this disconnect between what children are able to do online versus what parents think they can do online. And so they mentioned it's really about making sure that you're kind of monitoring what your children are doing, checking in, asking them who they're talking to online. If they can't give you an answer, that's probably a red flag. Another thing to look out for is your child separating themselves to be online? If they can't sit in the same room with you and be online, that's also another thing to look out for. And then something that was really interesting to me too is this idea of curiosity, right?
Mm.
Because it does seem like there are always new apps, whether it's social media or games or whatever. So it's asking your children what they're engaged in these days. What are they doing? But it's also like, what's the new lingo? Because we know that the kids these days, they have their own lingo and slang that they like to use. And if you don't understand it, it's possible that this could be, a code for something that you just are not aware of. So I think it's kind of a combination, but it really boils down to just kind of being aware and staying on top of that.
Right. The internet is so intertwined, which is like pop culture in general. It just feels like you have to kind of stay abridged at just like the goings-ons of the world. Now, going back to the law enforcement side of things, do we have any kind of local examples of child exploitation through the internet? What does that look like for people they may be familiar with that we've covered over the past few years or so?
Well, I'll tell you, as a reporter myself, it feels like we are covering this every day, even if it's just a short little segment on TV, another arrest by law enforcement or another sting operation by law enforcement. But if you remember, just last year in 2025, we had 2 Amber Alerts in 1 week.
Yeah.
One of them was a victim out of Siler City, and the other was a victim out of Harnett County. In both of those cases, the victims were 15 years old. And luckily, they did eventually catch the people who they believed were exploiting these children. And they were eventually charged with human trafficking amongst several other charges. And, Rowden said, if law enforcement can catch these perpetrators before it ever becomes human trafficking, I mean, that starts with the exploitation of these children online when they first make contact.
The slippery slope from the beginning of this contact to where things get truly dangerous. You mentioned you spoke with law enforcement about kind of how they go about doing this, what the current trends are. How much of a challenge is this for law enforcement to, combat something that's happening, digitally? There is not like a, place where people are meeting or whatever it might be. It's all happening online.
Yeah. And that's really the focus of my investigation is we're seeing this growing problem, over 1,000% increase in the past few years. But the resources are simply not keeping up with that. I reached out to all of the largest law enforcement agencies in our area. Most of them have fewer than 5 investigators that are working on these cases.
Wow.
And then you think about this 1,000+ increase. I mean, that's a lot for 1 to 5 people to be handling. And in some cases, these law enforcement agencies actually don't have a singular person at all that's dedicated to fighting this. Now, the state does have a task force. The State Bureau of Investigation, they kind of head that task force. It's the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. And, going back to those resources, when I was talking to Rowden, he mentioned that they're getting money from the federal government, but it's not a line item in the state budget. It's also not a line item for most of the local agencies as well. So they're basically depending on this federal grant to be able to kind of keep up with this. So it's a manpower issue, but it's also a funding issue. And I also, when I sat down with Holly Springs Police Department, they were talking about some of the ways that they try to catch these suspects. And they mentioned that there are like different apps and softwares that are out there that can help them kind of sift through information, sift through evidence. And that also costs thousands of dollars every year to be able to renew. So it is one of those things that it's growing so much that, I mean, Round said it best. He said, we're not going to be able to arrest our way out of this problem. The
resources are not moving alongside of this massive percentage growth that we're seeing. So then that's a tough note on all of this. So I guess if there's any optimism, if there's any kind of sense of what we're doing here in the future, where do we go from here when it comes to keeping children safe online?
Yeah, I mean, I think it boils down to what we were talking about before is families are going to have to get involved. Children, teenagers, they just need to be more aware of what's out there. When they're talking to someone, if you don't know them in real life, you should probably not talk to them online. And I think opening up that dialogue, making sure that both the children and the adults are aware of what's happening, that is really the best defense at this point. And then, of course, we mentioned at the beginning these cyber tips. That is through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They're the ones who keep track of all of these cyber tips and, reporting things if you suspect something.
Well, Destiny, thank you so much for your reporting. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Destiny for joining us, and thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download and for making us part of your morning routine. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. It's a daily email with Triangle news, events, and headlines to help you get ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.